It's good to be here today. I think about those initial days that we stood in the street in Ferguson. It was 400 long days. Some people look back and they think about it as a long weekend, but for us it was a long 400 days. If you ever saw us marching in the street then, it wasn't that we thought marching was the most effective tactic. It was that it was illegal to stand still in August, September, and October of 2014 in St. Louis. That if we stood still for more than 5 seconds, we were arrested. And I think about that often. I used to teach 6th grade math in East New York, Brooklyn, and I love 6th grade. 6th grade is by far the best grade. 7th grade is puberty and deodorant, and it's rough. But 6th grade, there's still a lot of magic in 6th grade. And I'll never forget, I taught these 60, 90, and 120-minute classes. And one day, my students were like, can I go to gym early? And I was like, absolutely. You can go to gym early. I'm tired of you. Y'all are tired of me. And I let them go. And what I realized that they came back really quick. And I was like, well, why are y'all back? And they were back because I realized they were in love with the idea of gym more than the work of gym. And I say that because in this moment, there are people more in love with the idea of resistance than the work of resistance. So I've been trying to think about how do we talk about the work in a way that makes sense? That this isn't to say that the ideas don't matter. We think about the idea of equality and equity, that the difference is that equality is the notion that everybody gets the same thing, and equity is the notion that people get what they need and deserve. And the work of justice is almost always the work of equity. That we're not asking for equal funding for school systems. We know it costs more to teach our kids born in poverty and proximity to trauma, that is about equity. That when we think about diversity and inclusion, that diversity is often about bodies, inclusion's about culture. You can recruit 30 more black students and still have a racist campus. You can recruit 20 more trans members of your community and still have a transphobic place. That this is about making sure the culture changes. But I want to talk about what I think the work looks like, and there are 4 buckets of how I think about the work. I have a niece and nephew, they're 6 and 5, and I don't know if you've ever seen a young kid learn how to eat, but I was watching one of them eat a piece of bread not too long ago, and what I realized is it's a simple process for them. They took the bread, they blessed the bread, and they broke the bread. And they took the bread, and they blessed the bread, and they broke the bread. And I think about that simple process as the process of this work sometimes. That in the taking stage, people understand that the system can be something different, that they're taking inventory of what's happening. We think about what it means to live in a world where 1/3 of all the people killed by a stranger is killed by a police officer. That is taking inventory of this. That what does it mean to live in a world where the 3 biggest mental health facilities in this country are prisons and jails? They are not hospitals the way that people think they are. That the biggest jail in this country is in Chicago, that we take inventory of what's happening right now because we know that we can do something about it. That in the blessing stage, people understand that real people's lives are impacted by these systems and structures. I just did a talk at the biggest jail for young people in Oregon, and in Oregon they have this thing called Measure 11, where 15, 16, and 17-year-olds who commit felonies are tried as adults. So I'm talking to young people who will go through adolescence in prison. And I'm looking at the human toll of the way that we have put people in cages and thrown them away. And that we understand that there's a cost to this work. And in the breaking stage, what we understand is that we can break this system, that this is a system not of constants, and it's not a system of chance, but it's a system of choices. And what that means is that we map the choices that have been made so that we can make different choices. That if I ask you how many people are in a jury, most of you would say 12, because that's the answer. But there are 2 states in this country, in Louisiana and Oregon, where only 10 people out of 12 can vote to convict people of a felony. That is crazy. It's one of the reasons why Louisiana has so many people. Whoa, here we go. It's one of the reasons why Louisiana has so many people with life sentences without the possibility of parole. We even think about the racial wealth gap, is that in 2053, it's projected, oh, I got sand in my eye. In 2053, it's projected that the median wealth for black people will be $0. That is a choice. So we talk about the importance of systems and structures because we know that systems and structures change the way that people operate in society. The second is this conversation about imagination. I went whitewater rafting. I went to college in Maine, and Maine is very white, and it's a lot of space. And we were on a raft, and I'll never forget, I fell off the raft. And when I fell off the raft, all I could think about was my next breath. I got trapped in the current. And for those of you that have swam before, you know that when you're trapped in the current, no matter how good of a swimmer you are, you're still stuck. And in that moment, I was just focused on the present. And that's one of the things that trauma does to us, that trauma traps us in the present. And that when we're trapped in the present, all we can see is what's right in front of us. And so many of our communities, we are so trapped in the present that we've forgotten how to dream. But we can't fight for things we can't imagine. That part of this work is about pushing people to imagine a different way of being in community with each other. That we believe three things. We believe that there will always be rules, there will always be consequences, and there will always be people to enforce the consequences. Everything else is up for debate. I'm not convinced that the people who find kids who skip school have to be the same people who go find murderers. I'm not convinced that if we think that people need to be separated from society, that means that we throw them away in cages. I want to believe that we can exist in a different way together. The third is about what power looks like. That there are two ways to think about power. We can think about power as power over, and power over is this notion that power is a finite pizza pie. Some people will always have more and some people will have less. Or we can think about power as power with. And when we think about it as power with, it means that power is infinite, expansive, and it is most potent when it's shared. And we're trying to build a world that is about sharing power. I'm hoping that most of you saw Black Panther, and no spoilers here, Wakanda forever. But, you know, the challenge with Killmonger is that Killmonger still believes in a model of power over. That he's just switching places with the bully, he's not ending bullying. And we never want to switch places with the oppressor, we want to end oppression. That there's this question of, are you not being bullied because you've become the bully? We don't want to be that person. And when Baldwin says whiteness is a metaphor for power, what he's really saying is that whiteness is a metaphor for power over. He's trying to call out that whiteness doesn't only show up as enslavement and lynching, that whiteness actually shows up in a host of ways. The fact that Band-Aids look like white people and not my skin, that is power. The fact that nude is the color of white skin and not mine, like that is power. Like, we want to help people see that power works in an interesting way. And it's interesting, when you talk about how to fix things for people of color, people have no idea all of a sudden. But we did it for white people. You think about white wealth, it's like we gave white people wealth. They didn't have to earn it. They didn't have to be special or magical. We gave it to them, and that was a choice. Trump just gave $700 billion to the military. It would take $125 billion to take everybody out of poverty. That this is a system of choices. And we name it because we believe that when we name the choices, we set people up to realize that we can make this system make different choices for us. That when we think about what it means to empower people, I can't give you power. What I can do, though, is help you find the power that you have. And the fourth thing I'll say is this question of who are we? I think that there are three types of people in the world. There are salt shakers, there are sugar high chasers, and there are bridge builders. And then the salt shakers are the people who drive me the most nuts. These are the people who sit down at the dining room table and they put salt on the food before they take a bite. And they do it because they are convinced that the meal will already be bad. And these are the people that the moment that we talk about how we can change this system to make it better, they're like, we're doomed, it won't work. Because there are two ways you can think about the world. Either you think that the system is fixed and permanent, or you think that it's malleable and the result of choices. And the salt shakers live in a world where it's fixed and permanent and we are doomed. Now, the hard part about those people is that they will never be a part of us getting to the other side of freedom. They won't be a part of it because they have already pre-contaminated any solution that we could offer. I name them because we have all been salt shakers before, and Lord knows you're probably sitting next to one. So we name it so that people can identify who they are to start to do the work to help them to morph into something else. The second are the sugar high chasers. These are the people who are chasing everything but freedom. I think about them as the people at the dining room table. They sit down, take 2 glasses of soda, eat 2 pieces of cake, and they're like, I had a meal. It's like, you ate something, but that wasn't a meal. And I was recently in San Francisco, and when I was about to land, somebody sent me a message on Twitter, and they said, DeRay, are you coming to the protest? And I said, what's the protest about? She said, I don't know, but I got my sign. And it's like, what are you chasing? You're chasing something, but it's not freedom, and it's not justice, and it's not the work. And there are a lot of people who are chasing something that's not the work. And I'm sensitive to it because I know that one of the things that it means to be marginalized is that you grow up on the margin. And when we grow up on the margin, we are often unheard and unseen. And in moments like this, people get heard and seen in ways they've never been heard and seen before. And people get addicted to being heard and seen more than they get addicted to being free. There are also a lot of people that when we were in the street every day, Their identity was rooted in battle. And when the battle every day stopped, they didn't know what to do anymore. But we name it because chasing the high will never get us to the other side. And the third set of people are the bridge builders. And most people think that the bridge builders are important because they build a bridge, but really they're important because they look at an open space and say, something can go here. These are the people who see something that other people didn't see. These are the people in the middle of the night, they come into the kitchen with a whole set of random ingredients and they say, we got a meal. And not only do we have a meal, but a meal big enough not just for me, but for everybody. There's this question about what type of people are we? And I'll leave you with a quote and a question that I heard from a pastor that I admire. He said, if God answered all your prayers, would it just change you or would it change the world? Thank you.